Pew, 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 pew. Weapon mods for Fallout 4 have been a major part of this channel. Whether you scroll really far back and look at when I covered that Pew mod, or even just most of my coverage of some of the different mods have featured one custom weapon mod or another. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is actually looking at every single weapon we've seen in gameplay of Fallout 76. Some of these are super obscure, other ones were really in your face. A major asset to me while making this video was a Reddit post by Hara Reeves listing many of these different weapons, and is honestly one of the most comprehensive lists on the internet right now. But even beyond that, for these new weapons coming to Fallout 76, all the times there is a mod available for Fallout 4 that will actually bring that new weapon into Fallout 4, I'm going to show that to you also. So let's start off pretty boring and let's look at all the things that have appeared in previous Fallout games and are making a return in this one. We have the 10mm pistol, this of course being iconic. It'll likely be in every single Fallout game from now until the end of Fallout games. And then the 44 Magnum. I actually just covered a mod for this one, giving it a new set of animations. I'll have the video linked in the eye. It made this thing very satisfying to use and actually got me using it in a lot of my gameplay recently. Fallout 4's very ugly and god-awful assault rifle is unfortunately making a return. As you could tell, I'm not a huge fan of that weapon. And in that same shot, you could also see the Fallout 4 hunting rifle as well as the Fallout 4 laser rifle. All those pretty big staples in Fallout 4's base game, and not surprising at all that they're making a return in Fallout 76. Then we do have the combat shotgun from Fallout 4. Interestingly enough with this, I scrubbed through it and on the same Reddit post, I couldn't find anything on the combat rifle. If you don't know, the combat shotgun and combat rifle from Fallout 4 are nigh identical, so it's likely the combat rifle will be making a return, but again, I couldn't find an explicit confirmation of that. And then of course, you also do have the pipe pistol, that being the standard variant that is heavily modifiable. But in addition, we actually saw a lot of gameplay of the pipe revolver. Something interesting with this one though is it seemingly got a facelift. No longer is it using that kind of, I guess you would say, tannish rusted texture. Now it has a nice black finish and it honestly looks a lot better than the Fallout 4 variant. This has seemingly been the only weapon to get this facelift, but it's interesting to see if that's something that will be more present with some of these other weapons and we just can't really tell from the trailer. You do have the double barrel shotgun, another staple that is not surprising at all to be making a return. So for heavy weapons, we have quite a few interesting ones. The missile launcher is never explicitly shown, but there's a missile shot at the player. So it kind of follows that likely the same missile launcher will be making a return. The Fat Man is seen in the No Clip documentary, a hugely iconic one in Fallout 4, and I imagine it's going to be a lot of fun in Fallout 76. A lot of gameplay is actually showing off the Gauss Rifle. I was personally never a huge fan of this one, but hey, some people probably like it. And then we have what looks like the harpoon gun from Far Harbor, but it's really hard to tell if that's actually it. It's held in almost exactly the same way and honestly probably uses the same animations because it's Bethesda, but again, I can't definitively say whether that's it or not. In the No Clip documentary, we get a little text listing saying the flamer was added, and spoilers, there's another one I'm going to be talking about in a second. You can see a ghoul slamming away with a wrench in some of the gameplay. There actually is a wrench weapon in Fallout 4. I personally never used it, but hey, it exists. And then outside of a bunch of different grenades, which are nigh impossible to identify, but I'm sure most of the common grenade types will be making a return, that is actually all of the vanilla weapons from Fallout 4 that are coming back for Fallout 76, or at least that we know for a fact are coming back. But of course, there's also going to be a ton of new weapons making a return, and now we'll look at that as well as any potential mods that exist for those weapons. So one of the most obvious new additions is the Flintlock Pistol. We see the character take somebody else down with this thing, and it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. There definitely seems to be a trend towards some of these old-timey weapons, which we'll get into a little bit more of. It's going to get really repetitive really fast if I continuously say, and this one doesn't have a mod for Fallout 4, so if I don't say there's a mod, that's just going to mean there is no mod. Such as for the Flintlock Pistol, no mod currently exists for Fallout 4. Then one of the backgrounds of the No Clip documentary, we have the single action revolver. You can actually see that getting added in the top left corner. Single action, if you don't know, more or less means after you fire your revolver, you're going to have to cock it back in order to be able to fire again. In Fallout 4, I believe all the revolvers are double action, meaning after you fire, it'll cock itself back automatically. A lot of those old-timey Western movies, you see single action revolvers. There are a plethora of these for Fallout 4, from custom revolvers, which I'll have one of them linked down below, but in addition, that pistol reanimation pack for the 44 revolver I touched on earlier also brings to the table single action action animations for that revolver. So this one very well may be a repeat of a old weapon, that with the 10mm SMG, but it's really freaking hard to tell, and I can't personally identify this. It's obviously an SMG of some sort, but again, what SMG and whether or not it is a modified 10mm SMG is totally unclear to me. So this one's pretty interesting. We also have a black powder rifle. Again, spoilers from earlier. This is interesting because how will this differentiate from the Flintlock Pistol? They're two fairly similar systems as to how you load the guns and to how they function, but at the same time, wouldn't they have the same naming scheme if one was just a pistol and one was a rifle, such as the black powder rifle would be the black powder pistol, or the Flintlock Pistol would be the Flintlock Rifle? Again, this one's a mystery to me. Like the Flintlock Pistol, there is no corresponding mod for Fallout 4 though. This looks like something new. It's actually in the guy's arms. He's running with power armor in the gray, but it's really freaking hard to tell what that is. People on the Reddit post are speculating a new shotgun of sorts, but zooming in and actually looking at it, I cannot distinguish this from some kind of rifle or whether or not it actually is a shotgun of some kind. We saw a ton of gameplay with the MG42. It was kind of odd how present that was in all of the trailers, but the MG42 is coming. Again, this being one of those interesting old school weapons from the World War II era. Then we also do have a Gatling gun, seemingly from the same era as the Flintlock weapons we did see. That looks really interesting. Personally, I think that's going to be a lot of fun to use. Hopefully it does like high damage with a low rate of fire and maybe a long time to reload. An M2 Browning can also be seen, one of the power armor guy's hands. This another one from the World War II era. Fallout 4 really had a lack of heavy weapons, and it seems like they are certainly addressing that with Fallout 76, which I'm very happy to see. Wasteland Melody actually released his heavy machine gun mod quite a while ago, and it more or less is exactly the same as the M2 Browning. It is actually a very fun mod to use, but one of the downsides is it doesn't actually feature custom animation, so you don't reload. The clip on this thing is just literally going to last forever. We see this thing a few times in the trailer. It seemingly is a totally new type of kind of plasma or energy casting heavy weapon. It looks like it's going to be something that is quite powerful, but it's not clear as to exactly what that thing is. In the center of this one, we see what looks like a thumper or grenade launcher of sorts. It has almost an identical design. I'll try and raise the brightness and change with the contrast so it's a little bit easier to see. We have a bunch of different grenade launcher mods for Fallout 4. I'll list some of them down below. There's actually a pack that adds in a thumper in addition to a bunch of other custom grenades, but also standalone versions of this. And then we got some binoculars, obviously absent with Fallout 4. This will probably be particularly valuable when you do have PvP being such a center stone of this game. Being able to see some of these enemy players as they do approach you. There are quite a few mods bringing this to Fallout 4. I'll link some of the popular ones down below. And then we have some of the melee weapons. I'll just go through these quickly because I don't find them nearly as interesting. You do have a sickle, a hatchet, a fireman's axe that we actually saw quite a few times and heavily modified, and then a pitchfork, which I could already see how people are going to do interesting things with this one. MikeMoore has this massive melee weapon pack that adds in like 30 new melee weapons for Fallout 4. If you're into that kind of playstyle, I'll have it linked down below. It's going to include pretty much everything you see on screen right now, as well as a bunch more. But yeah, that's everything we know about the weapons coming with Fallout 76. Some notable things: nothing of a plasma base. Also nothing of a gamma base, but those are significantly more rare. The plasma weaponry is typically like the opposite of laser weaponry in Fallout 4, I feel like. Now, just because it wasn't shown in any of the gameplay doesn't mean it's not making a return, but just something to note. And even beyond that, we are seemingly getting a bunch of arrow weapons with Fallout 76. You do have like the Revolutionary period when they're using a lot of black powder based guns. And then of course also the World War II era where you're actually looking at some of these heavier machine guns. I really would love to see maybe a few more iterations in both of those eras. Something like a Thompson and a trench gun for the World War II era. And maybe one of those old school grenades for the Revolutionary one. Either way, I would say the weapon list is way more complete for Fallout 76. It's obviously a huge step forward from Fallout 4. I do really hope they have a few more of those kind of Fallout-y weapons up their sleeve, things that are new and unique, but also look like they fit really well in the Fallout universe, not just recreations of real-world weapons. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one, but before we end things off, we will have today's psychology fun fact of the day, and that's actually going to be about color. Color is something that you hopefully know about, and there's actually a lot of research about color in the fields of psychology and even marketing as a byproduct. Color seemingly has a big impact on your opinions of things, whether it be in UX design, so the interfaces you actually use in apps, or even in just advertisements and layouts of various things. I've learned in school, and there's kind of a running standard as to what certain colors correlate to, so I'm going to read off a few of them, and some of them may actually totally go against what you think of that color. Red's a pretty simple one. It's used to create urgency, sometimes associated with blood or health, but it normally is draw your attention here immediately. Yellow seems to correlate to mood, and more importantly, like happiness, which I don't get that at all. I don't know where that comes from. I think a P. Green is meant to be about safety or harmony, something along those lines. Pink means girl, literally, like pink is associated with girly things. Purple is one of the ones that I've always remembered, even from learning this originally. It's actually associated with power or royalty, more specifically. Which now I kind of get it after learning about it, but originally I was like, how, purple is royal? Like, what's that about? Black is associated with grief, fear, or something that's overly complicated and expensive. And then white, as it follows, is purity, which is kind of obvious. Most of these are actually done by surveying consumers, so basically taking 1,000 people and saying, what is the first thing you think of when you see pink? Either way, I find it to be particularly interesting. It's probably a huge component of what you see in your day-to-day life. When you use a website, when you view a commercial on TV, color theory goes into that. Either way, I'm pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all later. Bye.
Someone's in the lobby.